Hello, 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 and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the first edition, a very special episode of the first edition. Tonight, we'll be constructing a story written in the Kishotenketsu style, or as also known as the style used commonly in the East. So, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? And we are back with the first edition. I am your humble host, Literature Devil, and tonight I'm going to try a little experiment. And this isn't just a writing exercise. I plan this to be something more, um, what would you call it? Tangible. If because of what happened, what we can try, like what happened last time with the Star Wars videos, with the Star Wars remake, where we just rewrote the Disney Star Wars The Force Awakens. It was simply an exercise. So what I thought in this scenario was that this isn't just Star Wars. This isn't just us going over something, some other person's intellectual property. It's more along the lines of just us creating something from a formula. Just like someone would create a story using the snowflake method or Freytag's triangle. We'll be creating something out of the Kishotenketsu style, which is one of the most common, or at least one of the most common styles in the East. So, furthermore, if we end this stream with something that's somewhat tangible, at least something that's solid, a solid concept at the very least, then I plan to turn it into possibly a series. Now, of course, it's not going to be an actual manga form. It's going to be more like it's going to be more in prose form. If anyone has read Goblin Slayer, the manga, at the end of at the end of each volume, the author has a prose story of Goblin Slayer, a short story. Sometimes it doesn't even have him fighting anyone. In fact, a lot of the times it doesn't have anyone fighting anyone. I think there was one about the guild girl who just asks Goblin Slayer to go on a lunch date with her, and he does. He doesn't get it, but he does. And they just sit there for a while, and then he kind of just leaves. But the way it's written, it's interesting because, of course, being written in the Kishotenketsu style, doesn't have any inherent conflict. So he didn't actually put in any conflict. It was just a instance of the guild girl just asking Goblin Slayer out, and he said yes because he thought, okay, I might as well join a friend for lunch, I guess, help her out. Um, then he just left. But it's all about the internalization of Guild Girl and what she's going through during that moment. They don't, and on out in the open, Guild Girl and Goblin Slayer don't really say much to each other at all. They just have a short conversation. They make a small talk, and then on the outside, this kind of ends there. But on the inside, the story is going over Guild Girl's thoughts. So it's going to be a prose work. Should I make it into a series? But it's going to be written in the style of Kishotenketsu. It's going to be probably more manga-esque. However, one more thing is that this series, should it be created, and I'm highly hoping that it turns out well, that we can leave this stream tonight with something solid enough that it can be turned into a series. I don't need much. I don't need much. It's something. I'm fairly certain that we can have something workable by the end of this. But if I'm going to make it into a series, it's going to be written in a shorter style, maybe about stories of 7 to 8,000 words a piece, if it is to be made into a series. And I will, and that leads into the other news. I actually opened a Subscribe Star page, and there are several layers there, different tiers that you can select. And about the Subscribe Star page, I struggled with opening one of these for quite some time. Some people had asked, "Are you going to open something like this, like a Patreon?" And of course, Patreon is out of the question. And there's no reason that I would be going to Patreon. I've seen what happened with Sargon, and so it, building an audience on Patreon is like building a house on mud. They apparently will just pull the rug right from underneath you without any notice, and suddenly you're without income. Not that I'm going to base everything on what I get from Subscribestar or Patreon, but in that instance, Sargon was getting around $10,000 a month. It's a significant amount of income, and for it to be just pulled like that because some people were angry, some people got offended, is not really something I want to support. And Subscribestar took in Sargon, and regardless of what happened, they kept him. Even when, what was it? Stripe and MasterCard and PayPal kind of pulled their support of Subscribestar, they kept Sargon and found other methods to carry out their product, carry out their service. So I see it as more of a, maybe not a solid ground to build on, but a far more solid ground to build on. But that leads into the next point, that if this is to be made into a series, I'm planning on posting its availability on Subscribestar, and it will be available to all tiers. And furthermore, it's not just going to be the series. I'm planning on writing other things that had been in the works that were going to go on Amazon someday, probably, and things of the past, things I wrote in college or whatever, and they will also be available on Subscribestar, on the Subscribestar page. So anything I was going to sell on Amazon, any sort of concepts or stories that had been in the works, will now be exclusively on Subscribestar, available to people who sign up for a Subscribestar. And it will be all stories will be available from the lowest tier. Every tier gets them, and because what I said before, I struggled with opening one of these things because I tend to only like to accept things that I earn. So that's why it took me a long time to finally settle on this. And on that point, I tried to make the tiers where I was earning my daily bread, so to speak. So there's going to be an extra stream. I'm still going to be doing streams on Friday, of course. I'm still going to be doing the usual videos, but there's going to be an additional stream on Sunday, like twice a month on Sunday, every second and third Sunday, I believe. And certain tiers will be able to help choose the topic. The first patron-only stream will, of course, be something I choose, and I believe I'm going to go over and read and or go over one of my early stories from college. It's actually, I think it is the story that changed the way I wrote, because there's where I found out a certain method that allowed me to collect things and kind of like, I don't know, it's like kind of that eureka moment. Okay, this is how I can do things. This is how I can get my stride. So I think the first stream is going to be me reading through that first one. It's going to be rough. It's going to be, it's before, way before. It's one of the first stories I've written while in the experimentation phase of me catching my strides. It's going to be a very early work, so to speak, relatively speaking, anyway. And I'm not going to change anything about it. I'm not going to edit it. It's going to be very rough. It's going to be It's probably going to be filled with plot holes and things people will point out and say, "Well, this is awful," but that's half the fun. And so that's what I plan to do for the very first patron streams: is go over one of my early works. And oddly enough, it's about a demon, so hopefully it'll be fun. But the second patron only stream will be up for debate, at least the subject matter. Subject matter. And that's about it. So I just want to let you know about that because the series, should it be made, which I'm very hoping and looking forward to it being made, will eventually end up on Subscribestar from all tiers. So that's where we have it. But if you don't want to add on to Subscribestar, it's perfectly fine. Everything else will stay the same, and we will have a lot of fun just putting something together. All right, Jaden Mitchell, thank you for subscribing. That's awesome. Welcome to the circus. All right then. So, as a reminder, if anyone hasn't seen the video I've put out, considering Western versus Eastern storytelling, and I know a lot of people have told me like you pronounced Oedipus wrong, and yes, I mean that's unfortunately that's a bad habit that never died. Because I read the play first, and I read about Oedipus first, before I ever heard how his name was pronounced. So I know it's pronounced Oedipus, but it's a bad habit that never stuck that I pronounced it Oedipus. So I know how it's pronounced, but it is just a bad habit. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary or anything like that. It's just a bad habit. But if anyone hasn't seen it, then the Kishotenketsu style is one of the most common styles in the Eastern tradition. And one of its points is that it doesn't really have conflict as its center. More like it can use conflicts. Conflict can certainly be inside of it, inside of the structure, but it isn't exactly necessary. And so I have it up here. The key is the introduction. Sho is development. Ten is the twist. And Ketsu is the conclusion. So basically it would go in and, as opposed to something like Freytag's Triangle, it would have its introduction, it would have a small development trying to flesh out the story a little bit more, and then it would have a major twist, a major turn of events. And then after that, it would just rain down into conclusions. And while that might seem familiar, it might seem like it is just a different form of Freytag's Triangle, you don't have to have anything, no inciting incident, no rising action or anything like that. It's, as I said in the video, it's probably why anime and manga have dominated the slice of life genre. And it's because it centers more on characterization, it seems. It centers more on the internal struggles of its characters. So, that is why it might be so interesting to play around with, because I'm used to mainly the Western style. Start off with a character, have your exposition, like in Star Trek, and then you go into the inciting incident, and then you have the rising action, and the story takes its course. So what happens after that is you end the conflict, and the story ends. In Kishotenketsu, you can have a whole story and only have the conflict come in at the end, or the twist. You might not even have to have conflict at all. Let's see. The Bored Enthusiast. How do slice of life manage to have no overarching plot but be so interesting at the same time? It's probably this style, because it's made to be a style meant for storytelling, which means it's a formula aimed to keep your attention. It's in the Western style, we usually just use the use of conflict to keep your attention. Kishotenketsu allows you to use something else. So, go ahead and get this up here. I have, in order to help out our little experiment, I have created a small list of just examples of genres and subgenres that just to help get our memory, get our thoughts going. It's always good to do that when you're you're going through a writing exercise. So, the first things first. Now, it's normally a lot of writers tend to go towards passion and to write things out of that passion. I have this idea, I love this idea, I'm going to do that idea. But if you're in the market to write and then produce that work for a paying audience, and you want to make writing a living, rather than just pumping out one book and hopefully it takes off, writers tend to want to make writing into a living, have to be able to produce without being inspired. Kind of like back in the old pulp days, where they're not necessarily inspired, they created a concept and ran with it. But then they had to pump out stories on a regular basis so that they could get paid and not starve to death. So how they did that was they created formulas, they created routines. But even Neil Gaiman says that if you wait for inspiration, you're not really going to make it as a novelist. So it's one of the things you probably should do, or at least get in the habit of, is just picking something and going with it, and just kind of maybe forcing yourself to create a story from whatever it is you find. That's a common writing exercise because it's very important for novelists and writers, especially if you want to make writing one of your sources of income, if not the main source of income. The board enthusiast. What is the difference between genres and subgenres? Not much actually. It's you can have, for example, fantasy be your main genre, and then have thriller be a subgenre. It's going to be predominantly fantasy, but it's going to have that thriller element beneath it. For example, you can even have a high school be the genre, because I know a lot of anime and manga, they have high school as the genre. But then you can have, for example, superhero being the subgenre. In that situation, it would be a high school probably for superheroes. You can have sci-fi be the main genre, and then you can have horror be the subgenre, which means it'll be a sci-fi setting, but with horror elements. You can have it the other way around too: horror with as the main genre and sci-fi as the subgenre, which would mean it might take place in a haunted, spooky castle with vampires and Frankenstein abominations running around, but there will be an element of sci-fi. Might have your Frankensteins be part android or part cyborg, I should say, and you could have your vampires would be have technical chips in their body or something, where they can control robots with their minds or something. So it's basically your genre will set the setting, and will set the predominant tastes and aesthetics, and then your subgenre will give an additional flavor. Let's see here, Doodle Office, fantasies, horror, or superhero horror intrigues me. That's interesting, superhero horror. I think it has been done. I think I've seen it done before, but it's not very common. And let's see here. The board enthusiast. So basically, genre is overarching, the subgenre is the complement, correct? That's about right. The genre will set the overall setting and the aesthetic, and the subgenre will add an additional flavor. Kind of like I guess kind of like adding a bit of chocolate to your ice cream sundae, or to your vanilla anyway, to your vanilla. Uh, Flying turret. I saw a bright that was a drug trip, and you can run mystery in a TTRPG. But I mean, is are you talking about Bright as the movie with Bruce Willis in it? I started it, but it didn't hold my attention, so I just stopped it. So I don't know how that story actually ends. Superhero horror, fantasy horror. W.D. Frost mentions the Dresden Files. That's a really interesting one. That one is a the Dresden Files, if I remember correctly, is the one where he's living in a modern setting. It's urban fantasy, I think. It's one of the prevailing works of urban fantasy, where he's living in a modern world with policemen, kind of a detective setting, but he's a wizard. Geocrichel, nanotech vampires. Yeah, that would be that would probably what would happen if you had a horror genre with a sci-fi as the subgenre. Doodle Office. I've thought about superhero stories. To be honest, provide me what are the odds? Though I added twists and downside. That's always a good idea. Just have a price to pay, some sort of price to pay. If not for the powers exactly or directly, then in their personal lives or something has to get in the way. Something has to get in the way of what they want. I mean, like Superman might want to save everyone, but his powers are so great that it gives him a sense that he should, but he can't. Like he can't. No matter how great his powers are, he can't save everyone. Ian Maxwell, Ghost in the Shell is the iconic crime sci-fi show. Yeah, that one would probably be a sci-fi genre with a mystery subgenre. Would be Ghost in the Shell. That's what they do. They are Section 9 is a unit that fights cyber terrorism. Yeah, I would say in that one, sci-fi would be the predominant setting. So sci-fi would be the genre, and mystery would be the subgenre. The board enthusiast. How would you go about doing a fantasy high school Vietnam flashbacks? Vietnam flashbacks in Netflix, She-Ra, and High Guardian Spy. That brings up an interesting point because I have actively avoided things like She-Ra and High Guardian Spice, but that's a good idea, a good suggestion. What if we created something that is also something that the NPC crowd wants, but we create a one that isn't mired in NPC propaganda or whatever. So we could go with that. Was it Fantasy High School? is that what is that what Guardian Spice and she? I know She-Ra has that weird feel to it. It's all happy and cozy and has those nice non-offensive color schemes and stuff. And they made She-Ra into uh, generously speaking, a little girl. Uh, Empirically speaking, that's Hank Venture in a dress. But is that what that is? High school? It's a She-Ra and High Guardian Spice. They're fantasy high schools. Because we could go with that. Just something to prove that there is a we can take a genre that they want, that NPCs want, and then twist it and corrupt it into something of our own. That would be very interesting. Flying Turret. What's the one TV show with the one vampire girl who wanted a guy's blood? I'm not sure. If that's an anime, I probably don't know about it. But the one that I know of is I don't watch a lot of vampire shows, especially not the modern stuff. And there's a lot of now Blade. I'd watch Blade. This is the vampire hunter going around and slaying vampires. That's something I watch, but not really so much other stuff. uh, Flying turret. Rufus, Mary Sue's are given things provided earn challenge and you'll fine. Oh yeah, that's basically Mary Sue. Uh, Mary Sue's are just given things. The plot kind of bends around them. If, for example, if you have a character who is normally competent, he's a strategic genius, then just the moment a Mary Sue walks onto the stage, he will suddenly lose all sense of competency and all sense of genius that he once showed the audience, so that the Mary Sue could be right and he could be wrong. And that's what we call a Mary Sue moment. And I will be exploring Mary Sue moments in the next video, which will be centering around why Rey is a Mary Sue and Luke Skywalker isn't. So I'm currently watching Star Wars, currently rewatching the Disney Star Wars. Little bit by little bit. You have to take these things slowly, you know. Let's see here. Ian Maxwell, high school slash fantasy, but dark and horrific. It could be a high school slash fantasy setting that plays on the fact that the NPC crowd wants a sanitized, friendly, safe space looking show, and then have the darkness and corruption living underneath. Turn Steven Universe into something much, much worse. I like that. I like that idea already. WD Frost, Vampire Hunter D, Helsing, and Black Blood Brothers. Also pretty cool. I have seen Helsing. Not the. I don't think I've seen. Maybe I saw the OVA. I saw one version of Helsing. It was pretty interesting. I forgot which one it was though. But Helsing was pretty good. Helsing had a lot of interesting elements in it. It was quite fascinating. I like the character. I don't really like some of the characters, but I did like how it progressed. It was like a. It was almost like a spy setting. If you look at other things like La Femme Nikita, the Helsing organization is kind of like its own spy network. They send agents out to carry out missions while keeping the ordinary public unaware as much as possible anyway. Let's see here. The board enthusiast. It would be fun to more Ruby by doing the fantasy high school, but better. I haven't seen that one either. I know Vic was on it and they fired him from it. I know Vic has had a very bad day, but best not dwell on that. Best to move forward, and he hasn't lost yet, so that would be something interesting. I'm leaning more towards that idea: fantasy slash high school, a fantasy high school setting with fantasy being the genre and high school being the subgenre. And for enthusiasts, this has been another Mary Sue moment brought to you by the Literature Devil. Yes, I'll be going into Mary Sue moments, and it seems to me that there are quite a few that you can discern from just The Force Awakens on its own. So this should be a fun video, and there should be plenty of NPC tears for everyone. Then again, there might not be. Maybe they will come to their senses and say, "Oh, hey, maybe Rey is a Mary Sue." I doubt it, but maybe. Let's see here. Ian Maxwell Ruby season 3 was good. Okay, it looks like it has that computer generated style, and not really a fan of that style per se. And it has to be fairly interesting for me to pay attention to something in that style. But I heard it was really good. I heard it was. I heard a lot of good things about it. The Doodle Office. He tried watching Ruby but couldn't. Well, now it's just a mixed bag now, isn't it? Jay Johnson, Ruby was poopy garbage. Okay. Ian Maxwell. I'm thinking Goblin Slayer, but the characters are cute schoolgirls with matching uniforms and have to investigate violent fantasy crime. That could work. It could be interesting. So we have our setting, we have the genre so far, and I think I'm set in doing this fantasy high school thing, like what I presume High Guardian Spice was. And I haven't seen it because I've been actively avoiding it. In fact, I hadn't, I forgot about it until just now. I think I purged it from my memory. And I also like I purged She-Ra from my memory. I only remember She-Ra whenever someone brings it up. I think it was getting canceled or something. I can't remember because I'm not really sure if anyone actually watches that. And let's see. LR high school slash fantasy slash dark in Monica Magica. Monica Magica is something I actually did watch a long time ago. It was suggested to me by someone who actually watches anime infinitely more than I do. I mean, he's watched like uh, anime with an obsession. He's not really into any genres. As long as it's anime, he'd watch it. I'm not really so much friends anymore, but uh, I did watch it, and it was actually pretty good. It was well constructed and well written. I mean, magical girl genre isn't something I usually watch, but I heard it was a subversion of it, and it was. It was very dark and had that sense of dread all through it, and it was very and that a delicious sense of sadness and dread and Kafka-esque storytelling that I really like from anime. I mean, you only get this side of kind of storytelling from anime, as far as I've seen. Western storytelling seems to be, at least in America, I should say, in America, we tend to like happy endings too much. And if something bad does happen, it's usually something that will get resolved. Uh, you can have horrible, horrible things happen in anime. It has a sense of dread. For example, one thing it's what I'm talking about is if anyone has seen Afro Samurai, when he has like a flashback from his dad, because his whole thing is trying to avenge his father. The one thing he loves most of all is his father, who was murdered. And when he has a flashback, or when he has some sort of whatever fever dream he was dreaming about, he dreamed of his father being tortured in hell, and that wasn't something he could fix. It wasn't something that at the end of the series he would rescue his father from hell or something. It was just something that he would be tortured with, and that's something that's a sense of dread, a sense of Kafka-esque existence that I really enjoy from anime, and you can't really get anywhere else, as far as I know. Maybe something from Europe, maybe something you'd get from the Eastern. I mean the Russia part, the Slavic countries, but it's really predominant here as far as media goes in America. That the main source of that sort of dread and that level of darkness and that level of brutality, characterization wise and darkness wise, is something that you could really only get from anime. Maybe every once in a while you can get that from something from China. But really, I've seen it from anime. It's very possible from anime, especially something like Berserk. Uh, Berserk is a great example. It's always in that mode. It's always the darkest, most uh, Kafka-esque mode possible. Even for the main character of Guts, who is exceptionally strong, it's even worse for people who are just normal people. Jay Johnson, I loved your most recent video. Awesome analysis. I never thought I'd see a comprehensive analysis of Oedipus Rex returning to the West in one video. It took a while. Again, I said Oedipus because I just can't stop. I can't stop saying Oedipus. You have to just gonna have to deal with it because I've tried to stop, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. But yeah, it took probably months of research, at least 2 months worth of research, because I have, like I've said several times, my repertoire of anime and Eastern works were fairly limited, so I had to expand my horizons on that. But yeah, it took a while. I was researching it while I was making the last video, or maybe the last two videos of his Comicsgate wrong. So it took a while, but it was fun. It was fun, very interesting. Very got to see a lot of things that, a lot of patterns in Eastern writing, and it was pretty interesting. Let's see here. The Board Enthusiast. They just released the High Guardian Spice pilot with a survey on Twitter, and it's about as much diversity pandering as, as you'll expect. So yeah, I'm High Guardian Spice has that look to it. It has that color scheme, that animation style that just screams social justice. I'm not really sure why. They don't seem to. It's that soft looking animation style, the soft looking color scheme that just reeks of, okay, you're going to the room with all the special people. This is the cuddle room. It just reeks of safe space, and no, in no way is it geared to make anyone uncomfortable or to offend anyone. Just as soft and as comfortable as possible. So if anyone is in that, it even happens with people on Twitter. If people on Twitter, you see them having that a picture, like a cartoon picture with that sort of animation style, that sort of color scheme, they usually have a high. You pay a very close attention to adhering to NPC beliefs and talking points, because they've been reprogrammed that way. So far we're going to go with fantasy high school, but probably a little bit darker. Let's see here. Ian Maxwell Modica wasn't really a subversion. It still played the same theme of an hope and virtue, selflessness. Yeah, I remember reading about Modica Magica, and they wanted to have the same feel as a Magical Girl show, but have it darker to the point of having the main characters die and tortured and die in horrific ways. So that is a premise I can go with. That's perfectly acceptable to me. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Let's. Unbury Queen. A faithful priest is a fictional god who finds out the god. Faithful priest is a fictional god who finds out the god he has worshipping is evil. Now, that's something that's That's something that I think I have seen in JRPGs. Of course, the only JRPG that I've really played was, I think, Final Fantasy X and a little bit of Final Fantasy VII, and maybe a little bit of Eternal Sonata at one point. But yeah, it seems to be a recurring theme, I should say, in JRPGs, where it is the main character will eventually go on to face, if not a god, then a god level threat. So that could be something that would easily fit in the Kishotenketsu style. LR Guardian Spy story is about impending doom that soon will come. To prevent it, they're training people with magic to combat it. That's what I heard. Yeah, yeah. It seems like it's going. I think it's going to be on one of those anime sites. I think, what is it, Crunchyroll or something. But it might be written in the Western style, because a lot of these NPC types, they kind of really like the expressiveness of anime, but they don't know how to write it. It's kind of like they know what they like from it, but they don't know why it works, or how to write it, or why it works the way it does. So the end result is just trash, just horribly written trash. You see this this influence in modern Marvel comics, where they try to have uh, characters be more LOL random, and characters be more expressive in their facial expressions, and be more anime esque. But it doesn't really work, because they're still working with a Western style, and they don't really know how to integrate these Eastern tropes into a story that's supposed to be Western styles, and they're trying to be more Eastern. They're trying to give superheroes more, trying to gear superheroes more to slice of life and drama, which doesn't work because they don't know how to do it. They think that all they have to do is have characters uh, be more dramatic or talk with each other more rather than punching things, and still going with what seems to be the Western style. And they're really using Kishotenketsu in any form or fashion. That's why it usually doesn't really pan out too well. And that's why you have so many cancelizations because of all the people who don't want to read them. Let's see. LR manga doing Marvel. It's Ninja Batman again. They're trying to just inject anime and manga tropes into the Western superhero story and failing miserably because they don't know what they're doing. They can barely write a Western story, whether regardless, can barely write a Western story. Say that, and that is let alone try to integrate Eastern tropes and Eastern styles into that. Fighter Stein, no goblins, candy ghosts. Tomberry Queen, fun fact, the spice in High Guardian Spice actually refers to arsenic because watching it will compel you to guzzle down milk chugs stuff. From what I can tell, that's probably true. I don't, it doesn't seem appealing. It seems way too safe space, and it kind of gives you that strange feeling. Like, imagine a stranger coming up to you with a big smile on their face and say, "Okay, I'm going to give you free candy." It's not really, and they're dressed like a clown or something. It's kind of like the same feeling you get when you see a clown these days. Like, yeah, they're smiling and they're really funny and they're very whimsical, but for some reason they're too whimsical, too funny. And what are they hiding? It's kind of like seeing a predator go around and trying to attract prey with something not harmful, something not non-threatening, something non-threatening. And then once you're lured in, they have you. So it gives off that vibe, like you're going into a den or a den of witches, or walking into a lair that has been occupied by cultists. So that's why I just stay away from those things. Stay away from those shows. Let's see here. Hi, Rosemary Moore, HGS is going to be on Crunchyroll. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was either Funimation or Crunchyroll. A Doodle Office, the Western writing I've always wondered about, the horror genre and movies where the MC is given a chance to join the main baddie, take over the world or something. That would be an interesting scenario. The bored enthusiast, I can imagine a knight in an academy who's blinded by the shine of personal glory and one unwavering loyalty, and that causes him to be reckless and neglect the finer detail. That that's a good transition into what we need to come up with next. Who will be our protagonist? Because of course we have to have a Nakama, or what was it, Nakama? Someone got really angry. I mispronounced Nakama. This is the way I've always heard it. And probably it's like with the situation with Oedipus. I'm probably not going to change. So you're just going to have to deal with it. I'm going to always going to call Nakama Nakama. So just make peace with that. Dual Office. I always wondered what would happen if they actually joined and a side character steps up to save the day. Now, if that would be an interesting scenario where the main character is seen battling a evil power, and then at the end, the evil power says, "Why don't you join me?" And then the main character actually accepts. Now, that could be an interesting thing to add in here, since we're going to be a fantasy high school, but darker. And one thing in fantasy, one trope in fantasy that takes place in, or that exists in both Western and Eastern, are great heroes. Great heroes battling monsters of some sort. So it could be the great hero who went after the Demon King or whatever, and then was never seen again. And it turns out that they joined forces. Very possible. Quite possible. Let's see. Jay Johnson, I think it's called Berserk. Yeah, something does happen. That is pretty much what happens in Berserk. Now that you bring it up, where Griffith sacrifices everything so that you could attain the power. Now that any other avenue has been lost to him, so I guess it would be kind of like that. Had it would, but what if Guts had done it instead? So, the central character, but it still works with Griffith. As LR, speaking of genre, what does Doctor Stone fall into? I never heard of Doctor Stone. I assume it's an anime, but having never heard of it actually, and let alone seeing it, I have no idea. Flying turret, Kama, Kama, Pala. Ian Maxwell, a fighter, rogue, and magic user. Pretty classic, iconic TTRPG. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed when I learned about the Kishotenketsu style and the fact that there is a comma. I was like, well, isn't that the whole point of games like Dungeons and Dragons? Is that you team up with members? And I'm not. See, that might not be why. That might be why, for some reason, D&D stories don't really translate well, as far as I've seen, into stories you actually sell. Because you, in the Western style, you need a main character, and it seems like that way in the Eastern style too. You need a main character, but in the Eastern style, it's more sort of collectivist. It's more, if you, even between the Eastern and Western Nakama, you could say Western Nakama seems to be more individualistic, where the Eastern Nakama is kind of like a team working together. They kind of complement each other. So Western Nakama would be like the Justice League, and where they're all, yeah, technically working together, but they're all really individuals. They're kind of like individuals working together, whereas in Nakama in the East is more like a team working together. So it's kind of like, yeah, they both exist. Nakama exists in both East and West, but they're still very different. They have a very different feel to them. And let's see. Humberry Queen. By the way, I'm working hard on my novel, and I'm enjoying the nasty flaw I've given him. The nastier, the better. He's a misogynistic woman hater. Got the idea from your video asking if a hero could be racist. Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, if that's good, you're working on your novel. Excellent. Keep up the good work. And yeah, the video about a hero, can a hero be racist, is not just about a hero being racist. It's, can a hero have a flaw or a character flaw that society, or at least a large part of society, views as unforgivable and irredeemable. I like Dexter. He's a serial killer, but he's also the hero, and he kills other serial killers so that he's a little bit more moral or virtuous. But what would happen if Dexter actually killed like other serial killers, or he's killed normal, everyday people? Well, he would be very. It would be much harder to have him be sympathetic. But in our fantasy high school setting, let's see if we can get about 5 characters together. So let's start with the hero. We're gonna put together a 5-man band. See what we come up with. And if we don't get to 5, that's fine. We don't necessarily have to have 5. But let's see what we can come up with. We at least need to have a hero. So who will our hero be? Well, of course, our hero will need to be someone young, high school age. Will he be? Will the hero be male or female? Start with that. Will the hero be male or female? The main central character. Because it would change the dynamic, especially if we're going to Kishotenketsu style, and especially if we're going to keep adherence to the running theme of Eastern stories in anime and manga, uh, not caring at all about political correctness. At least they don't really care when it in terms of storytelling, where they'll have pretty much anything. Let's see. Rivers Trotsky. There was a JRPG that focused on the POV of the sidekick. Cool idea, but for some reason, I can't recall the name. It does sound like an interesting idea. Just have the sidekick be the person that you control, and have the main hero be kind of a side character, so to speak, relatively speaking. The main character is not the person that you are. You are the person watching the main character. Now that's an option too. That is an option as well. Where our main character of the Kishotenketsu might not be the main character of the story, so to speak. It might be alongside the chosen one. Uh, Jared Chriselle, male but gay, gotta do the NPC thing. uh, gay cap, gay capitalist hero. Can't have a capitalist. Flying turret. The people see citizen killed and go sad. They don't know if the citizen is a criminal. And people tend to put the fact that they are a normal person first, and then we can say, oh, well, he was a criminal. Say that later. The board enthusiast, politics, shock, if not cringe, the reader back into reality when the purpose of entertainment is to entertain or give the audience a break from dull reality. It's this sense of escapism. That's something that the pulps provided, especially during the Great Depression, when reality could easily overwhelm you. Everything was horrible all over the place. You're poor. You're probably not eating very much. Then you can dive into a good book and forget about your troubles for a few hours. People need that. People need a chance to forget about their troubles. Basically, metaphorically speaking, you need a chance to lay down the pile of bricks you've been carrying so that you can give your muscles a chance to rest. And then, after you've returned from your dive into escapism, you can pick them up and you'll be far more prepared to carry that load. LR male hero, you can beat him without making it sexual. Doodle office, lunch ladies are always heroes though. Java Stein, what type of fantasy are we talking about? In this case, we'll go with the typical fantasy setting, elves, dwarves, that sort of thing. The standard fantasy, say. Of course, it's still open for us to create anything else, but for the sake of argument, for the sake of the exercise, we'll go with a very familiar standard fantasy setting. Flying turret. Vote female rogue. She sneaks around all sneaky, all beaky sneaky. I'm imagining right now. I'm just imagining the lunch lady to be like Chef from South Park. Is someone everyone goes through. And she could be like the mentor. She was a hero back in the day, but now she just serves lunches in school. Jay Johnson, a male rogue, one of two twins, and his identical twin being his sister. I'm fulfilling the chick role. Doodle office. We have that, please. Please. Need cat girls. Okay. Yeah, I draw the line at lollies though. Yeah, no Lolita stuff. None of that. It's a good book by Vladimir Nabokov, but no anime manga lollies. I won't. I'm not doing that. I still don't know. I still I'm still at a loss to why those characters exist. I mean, yeah, you can have a little sister character, I suppose, but that's it. You can have a little sister, but no like sexualization of an underage girl. That's not going to happen here. Okay, that's my one stipulation. Okay, Tomberry Queen. If it's a fantasy setting, gotta go with male. Women are usually kind of annoying in fantasy settings. Uh, in what am I seen in anime and manga, the at least the person who writes Goblin Slayer, he really likes having female characters, female adventurers. But then again, he also likes them uh, very sexualized. So it could have that double playing where, okay, NPCs get their female adventurers, but they're all going to be sexualized. That's what happens in Goblin Slayer anyway. Let's see. Flying Turret 2-8. Then two men for heavy and the fifth slot. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see here. So we have the protagonist. We'll go ahead and go with a male protagonist for this one. Uh, but his skill set, his initial skill set, because but we do know that it's going to be a fantasy high school, and the logical conclusion would be that is either going to be a high school, it's an ordinary high school in a fantasy setting, where it's kind of like a high school series or concept, but instead of just being set in the modern day, it's going to be set where students can be elves and dwarves and things. Or is it a high school where the characters are learning to be adventurers, that sort of thing, like just going off into kind of like if they're a high school for Pokemon, or I don't know what was that, Yu-Gi-Oh GX, where they go to high school to learn how to play card games, something, something like that. So we have like two main options here. Two main options being high school in a fantasy world, or a fantasy high school where the characters learn to be adventurers. Java Stein, are we making a D&D party? It looks that way. You need to have a so you need to have the main hero, who is probably going to be a fighter. They typically are, who is going to be very martial based and might have the ability to use magic or something. It's what separates the hero from other martial classes or whatever. And of course, we have to have a archer, maybe a rogue. We'll take that. A roguish character, someone like a thief, someone who's very witty and clever, like a fox. Let's see. Hi. So Varian, Nicholas Albrook. We need someone that hits like a truck. Defense optional. Barbarian. Okay, we have to have a barbarian. Yeah. So a barbarian will of course be the big guy. So we have the hero, who is going to be a fighter type, like a warrior type. Going to be, but he's going to be more of a thinker. The barbarian will, of course, the role of the big guy usually is that the big guy tends to be more powerful strength wise than the main hero, but the hero can do more stuff. Like they can they're smarter, they're more clever, they're able to access things the big guy can't. So while the big guy can beat him in arm wrestling, the main character can achieve more power. They are better at fighting. They are better at the skill or technique, or they can fight well and be strong while also being able to cast some sort of magic. Let's see. Charles Stein, Medieval High School, Theology and Law. And Nicholas Fallbrook will in that universe summon monsters. So okay, so if we're going to be a D and D, if it's going to be a D and D crew, which could work because it could be this, Goblin Slayer is essentially that. They have a shaman and a wizard and someone who can shoot arrows, and then Goblin Slayer and a priestess. But in this case, if we have to have a priestess be the healer, a priestess be the chick, I would think it would be interesting if the priestess doesn't actually go to the school, like she is in a different school. It's a seminary class which is just a school completely dedicated to teaching priests and clerics and things of that nature. Tomberry Queen, no, make the main character someone who is physically weak, the fighter, but one kick-ass magic user. That'd be interesting. That could work. Kind of like if anyone has read Elric of Melniboné, he is physically weak, but he has to keep up his strength through curses and potions and very weird stuff. It's very, very sword and sorcery. And sword and sorcery is not exactly the same as fantasy. I'm not really much of a fantasy enthusiast, but I am a very big fan of sword and sorcery. But this one can't really be sword and sorcery because it will take out the more uh, the chipper vibe we seem to have. Like on the outside is high school fun in a fantasy world that might have a darkness underneath, but if the darkness is underneath, it cannot be sword and sorcery because the darkness and the cruelty and the casual brutality is always on the outside in sword and sorcery. Jer Crystal, imagine technology never progressed past medieval because magic and monsters, but public school became a thing. Something like that. So, do we want it? I guess we want it. We're going towards the whole. It's going to be a high school for people who want to one day become adventurers. That's what we seem to be leaning towards, instead of fantasy high school just being a high school but with dwarves and elves and stuff. LR, so priestess, so make priestess a nun. Essentially, yeah, they have a different. They would have might have a different school altogether for priests and priestesses and what have you. Ian Maxwell, hero, sword slash leader, tactical genius, barbarian, big guy, mage, smart guy, priest, art, rogue, archer slash lancer. Usually, the lancer would be. Remember, the lancer has to be the hero's opposite. They're basically a copy of the hero in many respects, but if the hero had a lot of the opposite in terms of style or beliefs. For example, if anyone has seen Dragon Ball Z, Goku is a goofy, uh, I guess you could say kind-hearted, relatively speaking, and I guess you could also say loving if you really want to stretch it. But Vegeta is his Lancer when he shows up. I mean, before Vegeta, it's Piccolo. Piccolo is Goku's Lancer when they team up because they're both very powerful. But Piccolo is more all business. He's more stern and cruel than Goku is. But they're both dedicated fighters. They both have the same interests, and they're both very powerful. So, if we're going to go with the hero being magic, like a magical trickster sort of person, but physically weak, then the Lancer will also have to be. I mean, it could just be a mage school, I suppose. But the Lancer might also be in the same predicament. Maybe the hero is the mage. Maybe the hero is the mage, and the main character is the mage. And so if the hero is the mage, then the Lancer might be a different kind of magic user, like a shaman or something like that. Something like that. But whereas the hero might be brash, or the hero might be impulsive, the Lancer will be more thoughtful and careful and have a lot more caution to his character. Let's see here. Sure, Chriselle could have the blacksmith class for the dumb kids instead of shop. It'd be like a blacksmith class. They have they going into practical skill classes, trade schools instead of the normal routine of academics. Let's see. Uh, Jay Johnson, no coeds in my fantasy high school. I mean, this is an anime and manga. You have to have coeds. Otherwise, it's just takes all the fun out of all the weirdness that can go on. It has to be weird. Let's see here. The Ian Maxwell. So swordsman melee idealistic versus rogue archer pragmatic as their opposed elements. Yeah, the lancer and hero are the same. Imagine the hero, the same class or whatever, but opposite in personality. Um. Okay, let's see. Tomberry Queen. How about the story where the MC isn't the chosen one, but he's meant to help the chosen one in some way? I believe that could be interesting. That could be interesting. He's not the chosen one, but he's going to help the chosen one. So now, who's going to be the chosen one if we go that route? That because that'd be important. See, if the chosen one part of the crew, is the chosen one going to be someone else in the school? Is the chosen one just someone who has yet to be named? It all depends. It all depends. Ian Maxwell. Okay, is the hero mage, idealistic, or pragmatic? That's something we need to because the thing is, the Nakama has to have the hero be identified before we can really identify who the other person will be, especially the Lancer. You might be able to get away with the other ones without knowing who the hero is going to be, but the Lancer needs to be the opposite of the hero. The Lancer is in relation to the main hero. Jared Stein, mage, therefore gay. Back to social justice, brownie points. Mages don't have to be gay. It may not be very masculine, unnecessarily, but it doesn't mean they're gay. um, Now, what usually happens in these situations that the main character isn't necessarily the best to begin with. They might be there's different formulas to this. It might be the main character might be strong, like I guess a Yu-Gi-Oh style where they're really good, but then have to face off against other people who are really good. And that's where the stories come from. Or it's a character kind of like Naruto, where he starts off below everyone, and then through some sheer point of some eureka moment, or some gift, or some hidden potential that unlocks within them, they are able to, at least in one respect, outclass everyone. A huge jump. Like I think it's been a while since I've seen Naruto. And I've only seen maybe the first arc or something. But Naruto started off as someone who is at bottom of the class, and then he is able to learn, I think, forbidden jutsu, and that unlocks a potential in him that allows him to skyrocket, at least in some respects, to the top, because he manages to learn a forbidden jutsu in just a few hours, I believe. Jay Johnson, the high school is designed to build the chosen one's army to challenge some unnamed entity. That would be interesting. It's kind of like the Jedi Order. They kind of seek out potentials and then train them so that they become stronger and are able to serve in the future. And it could be high school that way because from what I've seen, anime and manga could have high school for almost anything. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh had a high school where they were learn where they learned to play card games instead of things like math. Or at least math not any more complex. I think it's complex enough to count life points. Jared Chriselle, foreign language class in Elvish or Dwarfish. And that could be an interesting class to have. I just this situation where I've I have ancient Elvish, fifth period or something. Because it could be the way we're going to go. It could be the difference between, is it going to be more slice of life, or is it going to be more an adventurous series? Because either one could be interesting. But if we're going to go with a D&D party, I think it'd be more geared towards an adventuring series, where the high school protagonists have to deal with some threat or series of threats. Have blacksmithing as a class. You have ancient Elvish or old Dwarvish or stone masonry. Doodle office. What about a mage? And that typically stays sidelines, avoiding most conflict. Jared Chriselle, slice of life. The fantasy is actually icing. Slice of life. The fantasy is actually icing. Agile Stein. Kirito's flaws being too cool and not fast enough. Isn't Kirito, is Kirito the main character of Sword Art Online? I've seen a lot of, at least I've seen some people comment, I think, about him in the comments of the video. I think from what I know, that is the main protagonist of Sword Art Online, and from what I've heard, yeah, his main flaw is being way too cool. Let's see. So, okay. Final consensus. Let's start off with what is going to be the setting. Okay, let's stick to this point. Is the setting going to be a fantasy high school slice of lifestyle, where it's going to be dwarvish and elvish and human or whatever people just going out their lives in a high school set in a fantasy world, or is it going to be a high school that trains adventurers? Let's mull that over. Let's see what the general consensus is on, and then we can move forward, and then we can pick out what our characters should and shouldn't be. Because if the series is going to be adventuring, then we're going to have someone. We're going to need someone to able to carry out the adventuring. But if not, then we don't necessarily have to have a main character who can fight and be an adventurer. Jared Kishel, we can have drama and personal relationships with field trips, adventures to give some gratuitous action. That could be an option. Let's see here. Okay. So what I'm getting is, okay, we're gonna go ahead and stick with the high school that trains adventurers. Okay, that's good. We'll stick with that. High school that trains adventurers, fantasy adventurers, and so we're going to need a hero that can carry out the adventure. That can be an adventuring hero. So here's the two options for the main character. We can have the main character be someone who is highly gifted, uh, Yu-Gi-Oh style, where they can beat the best person in the world on episode one, or we can have the main character be the bottom rung, the bottom tier of the class, and then through some sort of enlightenment or some hidden potential that no one saw before, they gain a leg up on everyone else, Naruto style. So that's the next point of contention here. So is it going to be gifted hero right from the start, or hero who starts off on the bottom of the ladder and unlocks some sort of secret potential? I'll wait on that one. Let's see. So that because that will shape everyone else. That'll shape everyone else that we come up with in the Nakama and how the story will progress. Because there's two different formulas. Two different formulas. Bottom of the rung. Okay, bottom of the rung. Naruto. Okay. uh, let's see here. Naruto. Bottom of the rung. Seeing. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing like a mix, a kind of a mix, kind of balance between bottom of the rung and highly gifted. So let's see here. It could be, I guess it could be like an Aang situation from the Avatar, where he is highly gifted because he's the Avatar, but he's also sort of bottom because he's so lazy. He doesn't really, he doesn't, his gifts have given him a sort of arrogance. But let's see if there's Ian Maxwell. If they are a smart guy, then wouldn't their path to power be someone who is gifted with incredible intelligence and uses it creatively, employ their otherwise weak magical abilities? Be powerful. Well, it could be a. First of all, we need to know if is the main character highly intelligent. Because remember, this is a school for adventurers, so high intelligence isn't exactly necessary, depending on what they want to go for. Because I mean, if he's a wizard, then he would need to be intelligent. But if he is a fighter or a warrior or something like that, then not necessarily so much. He could be kind of dull in the brain, but be an excellent fighter, for example. Kind of like Goku. Goku isn't very smart. In fact, he's known for being really, really stupid. But he is an exceptional martial arts prodigy. Doodle office, maybe not the bottom of the rung. I mean, he could be average. He could be average, just maybe not bottom of the rung, maybe. But maybe to me, it's more interesting if he's one extreme or the other. The board enthusiast seems like we have a divided consensus, so I guess it's up to me to make the decision. Let's go ahead and go with uh let's go ahead and go with bottom of the rung. Go with the underdog. That way, it has that Western appeal too, because the Western audience really loves the underdog. So we'll go ahead and go with the underdog. That way, the villains, whatever they go up against, will be kind of have that an interesting. It'll be an interesting scenario there because these villains will be very powerful. They'll be very haughty and arrogant, and they can see that this character has no real strength to oppose them, and then the character pulls out some incredible act of tapping into a hidden potential and then defeats them. So I think we can go with a bottom of the rung sort of person. Jay Johnson, he is bottom of the rung, but gifted in a hyper specialized area. He can learn language really quickly. Yeah, something like that. So that's the idea that we'll probably go with is the bottom of the rung character who can really do at least one thing really well, one really powerful thing. He's really good at one thing, or he is able to do something that makes him exceptionally powerful in some aspect. Yep. Nicholas Fallbrook will make him really good in a couple of areas, but lacking in others. And that's basically the how this is usually set up. with this bottom of the rung character, where they're really bad at everything, not really liked by many people, but they have that hidden potential, and they're really bad at everything else. Might be bad at books, might be bad at grades and learning and all that other stuff, but they're really good at this one thing, and they're really good at one aspect or another, and that's what they can conquer the whatever they come up against with. Let's see here. Let's see. Job Stein would be nice if he was a servant. Uh, a bored enthusiast, maybe high intellectual prowess. Where they gain physical abilities on the adventure, possibly. If he's gonna be bottom of the rung, it might be preferable if he were a. I guess if we're going to go with D&D classes, I think what he maybe he starts off as a wizard or something like that, like a mage, but he can't really grasp the spells. And then but it turns out that he's a sorcerer. If I remember correctly, a wizard is someone who learns how to use spells. So they go to school, they use their intellect to learn spells and how to summon them and how to use them. Whereas a sorcerer, they're able to summon the spells and things from will. But the trade-off is that while the sorcerer can use spells at will, they are very limited in what they can do. Like, for example, the main character could find out that he's a sorcerer, but he can't really learn new spells on the fly. He can't just read a book and learn the spell. He has to feel it, and that would go into the spiritual harmony and the self-discipline aspects. Because now he's powerful. He can summon powerful spells on the fly the way no other mage can, but he is limited in the grasp and the wide range of what he can now do. Maybe he's this what is it? I think I also know there's bloodlines. I also know there's bloodlines or something. So maybe he is a bottom of the rung student at mage school, but he learns that he's a sorcerer because he actually has dragon blood, or he has the essence of a dragon in his blood. Like his family came from the bloodline of a dragon somewhere in the past. So that way you can have that bottom of the rung, but he has that hidden potential in there. Maybe he hasn't found the hidden potential, and it is unlocked because of something occurring for whatever reason. Jade uh, Rochelle, bottom of the rung plus inventive, comes up with anachronistic solutions to problems, almost like he gets visions of future technology. Something to consider. Jay Johnson, okay, board enthusiast. Kind of reminds me of Milo Thatch from Disney's Atlantis. I remember Disney's Atlantis. It was a very, very interesting movie. I really liked that movie, and mainly because of the mole, and also partly because of the receptionist lady. She was very like deadpan, and she didn't really care, and she's on the phone no matter what happened. Because there were a lot of colorful characters in Disney's Atlantis. Let's see, Rufus Trotsky or Devil Blood if you want to be. Now that might bring up an extra interesting, like another layer of it. But then he had to be evil, and we have to go with him. I think I still lean towards Dragon Blood because now we can have dragons. now, we, now we can have dragons, and dragons are always fun to play around with. Let's see. Let's see. Jira Krishel, imagine Galileo inventing technology in the fantasy world. Hmm. Especially if Galileo, there's a Galileo, and then there's a Pope character who wants to lock him up. Uh, Jay Johnson, the protagonist, cruises by in his language courses, end up meeting his party by becoming a language tutor. Now that could be interesting. W.D. Frost, wizard, is the guy who studies for years. Sorcerer, they're just born with it. Yeah, that's why I think it'd play right into that whole bottom of the rung character archetype. Maybe he's trying to learn how to be a wizard because his family came from maybe he came from a family of very distinguished wizards or magical people in some way. Not necessarily adventurers, but people who went around and maybe performed good deeds or very highly respected and famous uh, counselors or advisors to kings and princes and high up no dukes, ladies, that sort of thing. And he goes to school to become a wizard, not really going so well, kind of really bad at it. And then he figures out that he is a sorcerer and he can just summon spells from the ether at will. Ian Maxwell, a wizard prepares spells for their books. A sorcerer has magic in blood. A wizard can theoretically learn almost any spell, whereas a sorcerer can only choose a small number. See, that's a good trade off there. So in the beginning, he could seem like almost invincible, like he can defeat almost anyone. And then we figure out that he can only hold so much, and that's it. I mean, Goblin Slayer did that. I mean, the priestess can only cast 2 miracles a day when she first starts out. So, I mean, if Goblin Slayer can do that, I mean, we can do that. Let's see. Nicholas Fallbrook, sorcerers also rely on willpower to make the spells work, which makes moments of weakness even more critical. That's a good point. So he has to remain strong-willed. He has to have a sense of confidence. He has to remain strong emotionally, so that his spells can work. So if he wavers, his spells will suddenly not work, and he's suddenly helpless. And that could make for some interesting moments when, especially with the first time that happens, he could go in confidently, then someone beats him, and then he loses that confidence, and now he's completely helpless because he didn't train in any self defense, martial self defense. LR, he have mapped his ancestors' wealth, make him have an infinite supply of money. Now that brings up an interesting point because we could have him either be from a rich family, but kind of disgraceful because he isn't the prodigy wizard that he's supposed to be according to his bloodline. On the other hand, he could be going to school, learning to become a wizard, being driven by the fact that his family is now in decline. That maybe his parents are dead, or at least one of his parents are dead, or both parents are dead, and he is now living with his uncle or some other relative because something happened to his family and they are now in decline, and he wants to become a great wizard so that he can bring his family name back to the esteem that it once held. Uh, Flying Turret. Speaking of dragons, a book I read around fourth grade was Dragon Run. Grading system dragons were mana system. Systems for the world. Protagonist got 0, the worst possible rank. He went on the run. Dragon Devil. Flying turret. Dragon Devil. Now that could be interesting because it could be a rare sort of mixture there. Not just a dragon, but a dragon devil. And you could have instances of characters who are priests or something, just kind of sense the main character whenever he walks in because he can sense the evil. And we're not really sure why, but we can also but later on it could be revealed that he's a dragon. He's of a dragon bloodline, but the dragon that is in his bloodline is this tyrannical evil dragon that is part dragon and part demon or something. That could be interesting. And let's see. Chris Cap. Could even be dragons hunted to extinction type thing. Could be dragon and devil blood mix. We put it that way. It might be too OP, so I don't know much. But it could be a dragon devil mix where it's just kind of a in between. You're not really full dragon, and you're not really full devil. Could be something to ponder on. Board enthusiast. I'm not. I'm getting Fire Emblem flashbacks. Oh, does this happen in Fire Emblem? I haven't played those games, so this could be something that does happen in Jared Krishel. His dragon blood should be something shameful that he has to hide and pretend to be doing wizard magic while actually under his inner power. W.D. Frost, our devil wanting to sign them in service. Let's see. It could be that the a past family member made a deal with a dragon devil that in exchange for something that the dragon devil would introduce his power into the family bloodline, and then I could come back as a way to uh, bring back that problem later on, and it might be a way to have the main character choose between keeping his powers and protecting everyone. So it could end up that way. So we might go with the Dragon Devil and having his power being introduced into the bloodline be as a result of a pact made with one of the main character's long gone ancestors. A flying orphan protagonist, not necessarily an orphan. I know that's one of the common cliches. Nothing wrong with cliches though. By the way, it all depends on how you use them and how significant. But he doesn't necessarily have to be an orphan. It could be living with his mom or living with his dad or having had lived with them and being sent off into school. But his family, the main idea here is that his family is in decline for whatever reason. That might be due to the deaths of the main, the patriarch or the matriarch, whatever. But the idea is to have his family be in decline, unless we go with him already just being rich, and therefore the conflict he has with his family is being not so good. Not so good when it comes to the wizardry. So once we finish this, so which one should we decide on? Let's see. A board enthusiast. So if we had some Dragon Devil blood, I could see him as a school prankster slash con. He has a chaotic evil demeanor, but then we're straying away from protagonist hero trope. Not necessarily. I mean, if I remember correctly, Naruto in the first episode, he was kind of a prankster. But he's not evil. I wouldn't call him evil. He's kind of a prankster, but his pranks weren't really malicious. They were annoying, but they weren't really malicious. So we could have a now. He's just Naruto now, isn't he? If that's the case, he'd just be almost Naruto. So maybe we'll just change him up a little bit. Rosemary Mori, a demonic dragon, could still work in anime. Dragons are often depicted as gods, and they could be the good or bad spectrum. Oh, board enthusiast, okay. Chaotic neutral, okay. Where he's just devoted to chaos. Um, Turkish boarding high school, like Hogwarts. Oh yeah, it's going to be like that. Because I mean, a lot of what the anime and manga I've seen, you can't have parents getting in the way. I think that's also the case in what was it, Little Witch Academia. It's just a boarding school. They stay in rooms on campus and then go to class. So it's going to be probably like that. Let's see. Fighter Stein, I came up with a half interesting, unrelated idea. Maybe I should write it up. You should. Go ahead and write that up. Let's see. The war enthusiast, I would make it the patriarch, just the NPCs. And that would work. That would definitely work. Yeah, we'll make it the patriarch. The father of the family had died somehow, and his death caused the family to go in decline. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. Okay, so now we need the main character's personality. Now, from what we have so far, his personality could be derived from his studies, him being a studious type. So he could be the socially awkward type. He could be the quiet type, since his motivation here might be to trying to get his family's name back in order. So he might not want to do things that will besmirch his family name even more or damage it in any way. So he might be more traditional, might be more respectful, maybe shy slash socially awkward. Maybe he might be actually a good student on paper, but not really practically. He can't really perform the spells that he knows of. That could be one way you could go there. But I'm thinking more of uh, outcast type. Since we're going so close to Naruto, he'd be like he'd be more of an outcast type. And then we could, because once we have him, we can flesh out the Lancer. The Lancer could be a different type of wizard. The Lancer could actually be a wizard. Like if the main character is a sorcerer, then the Lancer could actually be a wizard, but with the opposite sort of personality. Chris Cap, many Chinese dragons are grouped by 7 elements: earth, air, fire, water, metal, light, dark. So dark dragons could be demonic. No, that's interesting. Okay, we can go with that. There, there are instances of Japanese works being using Chinese mythology, so it could work. And uh, Jared Kushel, crotchety dwarfish hall monitor for the dorms. That old grouchy teacher in control of the hallways. Ian Maxwell. So we have a dragon, devil-blooded sorcerer who present was present as a wizard due to social stigma of being a sorcerer. Well, in this case, basically yes, but I think sorcerers in this world should be rare, like a very rare, not like not running around everywhere. So that's why most people have to go to school to become wizards. Most people are wizards, and sorcerers only come about when something very powerful has entered your bloodstream, has entered your family blood. It doesn't really happen all too often. So there might be like a sorcerers in mythology. Maybe they're highly revered or highly feared or both. That maybe some of the worst people in the world's history were sorcerers, and then some of the best people in the world's history were sorcerers. So they have the stigma. The stigma could work. Stigma could work. People, not necessarily someone people hate right off the bat, but more the stigma comes from the fear that the world's mythology surrounding sorcerers kind of generates. We can go with that. Let's Ian Maxwell, studious and quiet, could be good for laying low, not causing trouble. I'm guessing that in the beginning, the character shouldn't know that they're a sorcerer. It should be they're going to school and then trying to study, but they're not doing so well. And then when the time comes, something happens, and they try to defend their friends, or they're trying to defend themselves, or something happens, and then they tap into the hidden potential they didn't know they had. And now you know they are a sorcerer. Now everyone knows, at least the main character knows, that they have the powers of a sorcerer. Doodle office. What about quiet, slightly dull type who slowly brightens up over time? That's what I'm thinking. It give you a very uh, visual and personal sense of character development as they begin as a kind of a reclusive, kind of like introverted sort of type, and then they kind of branch out and reach out and make relationships over time. It would go well. It would go naturally with the Nakama setup, where he starts off alone, kind of like Goblin Slayer, and then starts to regain that humanity, starts to regain appreciation for friendship, and makes connections, and then slowly begins to develop uh, a kind of an adventurous personality, sort of gone from keeping to themselves, being introverted, not really connecting with anyone, to kind of opening themselves up to friendship. So, so we're going to go with the protagonist being a sorcerer who is being a wizard. Doesn't know they're a sorcerer yet, but they're undergoing the courses to become a wizard. Not really doing so well, uh, because it's not really working out for them. However, they are a sorcerer, and it all depends on their emotional state and their sense of confidence. And they are very studious, like to keep themselves kind of introverted type. Now, the Lancer will have to be the same but opposite. So what we can go with the Lancer is a full-fledged wizard, someone who actually went to the academy and studied and learned how to gain their powers through knowledge and intellect. But the wizard is probably going to be this extroverted type, someone who is outgoing and very big personality, as opposed to the hero's smaller personality. Ian Maxwell. So sorcerers are stigmatized because they are so extreme. Yeah, because I think they could be stigmatized because every time one of them pops up, it tend to change the course of history, either in a good way or a bad way. That's probably why they're so stigmatized, because they're rare. But when one pops up, they can change the course of world events should they so choose. The bored enthusiast, maybe he's generally innocent and good-hearted, while the dragon blood randomly gives him spurts of doing terrible, morally degrading things. He snaps out of it. When he snaps out of it, knowing what happened. Now, that could be interesting in the fact that before his sorcerer powers develop, it could be that the dragon blood within him had remained dormant. So it might appear like a good thing. Like now that he can do magic now, and he's really powerful now. But it could be the backfire from this, the drawback, because it's from the blood of a dragon devil, a dark dragon, so to speak. Maybe the longer he stays in that form, or maybe the more he uses his powers, the crueler he gets. Like it's kind of like if he uses it for too long, he gets more malicious, more sadistic, and then once he lays low in his powers, he doesn't use his powers as much anymore. He starts to revert to normal. That's very anime. That sounds pretty anime. So I mean, his powers come with a price, and the price is his normal sense of goodness and generosity. So his morals tend to go away the more he uses it, pretty much. Which would be scary because once that sorcerer in this world, once he becomes cruel, bad things probably will start to happen. So, board enthusiast. What if the Lancer were a chaotic neutral prankster? That could work. If the hero is a studious character that is loyal to, oh, is a hardworking, dedicated student, then the kind of model student type, then the Lancer will be kind of like a prodigy in the realm of magic. So they might be they might not really study at all, but they are really good anyway. They can stay up all night, just reading whatever they want to read or going out or doing whatever they want to do and then go next morning and ace the test. Those sort of that sort of person. It could be a prodigy, not a sorcerer, but a prodigy wizard. And Jay Johnson, so L is our protagonist, and his lancer is Light Yagami. I mean, you could say that. I think Light Yagami had to study, but and he's not going to be as cruel as Light Yagami. So I think might go with what board enthusiasts had suggested, that the wizard lancer will be have a larger personality. They'll be a prankster type. They they can stay up all night pulling pranks and messing with other people, and then go and ace the test. That gives them a sense. That'll give them a sense of arrogance, a huge sense of, this kid may be a sorcerer, but he's not as good as me, sort of mentality. And it would play into the whole notion of them being an enemy to start off with, because a lancer tends to be an enemy to start off with, because they, even once they get into the nakama role, they tend to remain rivals. So yeah, so we're gonna go with the lancer being a prodigy wizard who has a extroverted personality, very, maybe not friendly, but very able to speak with. They are able to speak with people. They know how to talk to people, and they can be somewhat charismatic, but they like to play pranks. A very very they like to pull pranks. They like to do all sorts of things, and they don't really have to study. They just show up and ace the test without really having to study, because they're such a monumentous prodigy. More so than the main character. A flying turret 208, dragon demon, kleptomaniac tendencies, dark thoughts such as objectifying others, sociopathic or psychotic, sociopathic or psychopathic. And those sorts of traits will probably make themselves known once the character uses their magic too much in a short amount of time. That could happen where they have a villain, and then the main character gets pushed too far, and then they finally defeat the villain, but only because they become more and more cruel and less caring towards others. Maybe so. In this case, the main character would also have to be very caring, very selfless. Basically, kind of like a thriller protagonist, almost. Like your Jack Bowers. As your Crystal, Hero often has a hard time figuring out he's in reality. Nightmare thanks to the dragon demon trances. People just think he's quiet and reserved. Could be. I think we probably have be better if we go with the fact that his dragon blood hasn't awakened yet. But once it awakens, he might start having those things. Maybe might be hearing voices, or seeing things that aren't really there. That kind of thing. Also, next question: is a lancer a? We have the main character as a male. Is the lancer going to be male or female? Because in this sense, it might change the dynamic too. See here. Let's see here. The board enthusiast. What if the rivalry only existed in the lancer's mind? The protagonist has a bigger fish to fry. That could work. That could work. Maybe it could. It could be a. It could work because if we're going to go with this kind of lancer, then they're going to be very arrogant. Maybe the lancer too comes from a well-off family, but their family is still well off, very still in high regard, very esteemed, very beloved around the kingdom. And so when it's revealed that the uh, the main character is a sorcerer, that kind of has that sense of rivalry where the main character doesn't really care about them, or doesn't really connect with them that much. The the lancer becomes hostile because now this person is moving, this nobody, this fallen person from a fallen family is now a great figure, and will potentially change the course of current events. So that will play right into their sense of arrogance. Uh, Herschel, you wrote Hermione for the Lancer. Okay. uh, Flying Turret to 8. Hey, where's the villain's locket? Innocent whistle. That, yeah, because the Lancer does not have to be introduced first in the comma. The hero is usually introduced first. The hero usually start. I mean, the Lancer usually starts off as a antagonist, and then later becomes a companion, and then their relationship becomes a sense of rivalry, like kind of like with Goku and Vegeta, if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z. And if you're familiar with Yu Yu Hakusho, superior version of Dragon Ball Z, Kuwabara and Yusuke Urameshi remain rivals. They join the same team, but they remain rivals. Okay, so it seems that we're going to go with a female Lancer in this case. Uh, if you Rufus Trotsky, we want our school harem, the Lancer must be female. We're gonna go harem now. Ian Maxwell. Okay, let me say that a female Lancer who is brash, loud, battle mage type could be pretty rad. Okay. uh, let's see. Um, looks like we're going to go. Looks like we're going to go with a female Lancer. And she's arrogant because her family is still a family of esteemed wizards, and or at least maybe not necessarily wizards, but her family is still esteemed, very and held in very high regard, and being a prodigy in her own right, she's very arrogant. I mean, that's double arrogance right there. So she would make a perfect antagonist for the hero, especially after it's revealed that he is a sorcerer. Let's see. I'm not make it make it a harem. I'm not sure about that. Okay, so next up on the list, okay, the 5-man band, the smart guy. Now we already established that the main hero is smart, and we can have a smart guy with a smart main character, but this smart guy is usually weaker, not so capable as the main character, and they can tend to be smarter in the fact that they know more things. So maybe while the main character is more studious in terms of his schoolwork, the smart guy could be a nerd that just absorbs information. Uh, Rochelle, the smart guy, mechanical rogue who is Galileo-like. Okay. Now that's an interesting point. Yeah, the smart guy might not necessarily have to be academic smart. It could be like a streetwise. I'm not really sure that. No, smart guy has to be smart as a in some way. They have to know a lot of things. They have to know a lot of things. So the smart guy has to know a lot of things, or is able to. Uh, we have a smart main character. We have a prodigy level Lancer. The smart guy will have to be someone who's ridiculously smart. Maybe like the a prodigy Lancer is good at wizardry, really good at wizardry, but maybe not so good in other aspects of the class. Maybe she's just passing in other classes. Maybe she's just above average in other classes. But when it comes to the aspects of wizardry, every aspect of wizardry, for example, maybe she's good at casting spells. Maybe she's really good at learning spells, but she's barely passing Ancient Elvish or something. Where the smart guy might be a little behind the the main character, maybe a little behind the main character and the Lancer in terms of magic. But the smart guy is really good at all the languages, knows the history off the top of his head of all the ancient kingdoms, is able to dissect, different types of dragons by sight alone. So a smart guy is the guy you go to when you want answers. He's basically the guy who tells you the exposition when he's basically the exposition tunnel. That's the narrative role of the smart guy. So if something happens, like if an interesting or weird creature shows up, the smart guy will know at least something about it normally. That way we can get the context without having to just dump all this on the reader. We can have it dumped on the reader via characterization, which is more interesting because it helps develop the fact that the smart guy knows about dragons, or the smart guy knows about kingdoms and languages and that sort of thing. So while he might not be the best when it comes to wizardry, he might be the one of the top students or the top student in the school when it comes to all the other classes. So this guy would actually be Hermione in that sense. So let's see here. Let us see. Smart, Jay Johnson, smart guy, is a metagamer because he could be genre savvy. I think that's a trope. I, okay, we are in a dungeon, therefore there will be traps. That's he comes. There will be traps, and there'll probably be treasure. So he could be genre savvy. And when they walk into an inn, the smart guy will say, "We probably should talk to the innkeeper or something," and or we should probably talk to the guy who's sitting in the back with his hood up. Another board enthusiast. Well, wizards and sorcerers are already kind of the brains of the operation. Yeah, that's the problem here. But because we already have a smart main character, we already have a prodigy wizard, but this guy could be good at everything intellectual wise. He could be really into their version of classical music. He could be really good at all languages and dissecting information. Ian Maxwell, could the smart guy be smart in the sense that he can read and sum up people and situations almost immediately as passing age? Sort of. The smart guy has to actually be smart, as far as I know. So we could have him be pretty much anything, but he would probably be the guy who everyone turns to for obscure knowledge. Like he is there for obscure knowledge and general knowledge. Well, maybe not so much general knowledge, but it's obscure knowledge. So if a monster arrives on the scene and no one knows what it is, they turn to the smart guy and he will know what it is. And he's going to be that push up the glasses kind of guy. He could be that way. He could be that way. Let's see. A janitor. We need a janitor in our crew. A janitor could be in the mix. Like a smart, wise janitor could be in the mix, but not necessarily part of the Nakama. I think the Nakama here should be just all high school students, all students of the school. But the mentor type could be the janitor, and that's what separates the group from everyone else. Is that they're the only ones who take the janitors seriously. The janitors always going on about how he used to be an adventurer once until he took an arrow to the knee or something, and he's always going on about wild stories that he encountered, and then no one believes him. No one really pays him any attention until the main characters do, and so that's what separates them from everyone else. That they are the ones who actually listen to the janitor. At least the main character does. At least the main character. The board enthusiast. So what if the main character already fills the role of the brains, while some knight fills the role of the leader? Maybe not in this case because the main character is already going to be the most powerful because he's a sorcerer. He's world changing. Might not work in this particular setup. So what we can have is the setup of where the main character is studious in his studies. The prodigy lancer is really good at knowing how to cast spells and the not general knowledge of being a wizard, but the smart guy knows particulars and details about almost everything. He's like the number one in almost every class. Let's see here. LR, pretty anime like that. I forgot. uh, Jared Kershell, Matt Damon, young janitor. Yeah, I mean the janitor. We could have a jan. We can have a janitor, and he could be the mentor type, being a former adventurer or disgraced adventurer, maybe a disgraced one. But apart from that, we can have the smart guy who is the person we turn to for general knowledge. And big guy we said was going to be a barbarian. The big guy was going to be a barbarian, and in this case, I don't think he should be like an antagonist. He probably something. Maybe he's an outcast barbarian too. Maybe have our own little version of the Losers Club from it. Maybe he is a barbarian who is, I don't know, extra nice or something. But after the barbarian, we also need the heart. So right now we have the leader, we have the lancer, we have the leader who is a sorcerer, a once in a, or maybe not even once in a generation, but very rare iteration of a type of person that is known to be world changing, a sorcerer. We have a prodigy lancer, and a prodigy arrogant lancer. You have a smart guy who is the top of all classes. Maybe not the most powerful wizard or anything like that. Maybe not very good at combat at all. But he's more like a, I don't know. I heard the term utility mage before, where the utility mage isn't really there to do damage, but is able to. Maybe he's a different school of magic. Maybe he's like a, what was it? I think was it a diviner? He can divine things, so he can put things together and he can find out where people are, or you can help people find loose change, or you can help people find where they put their car keys or something. I don't know, but he is not going to be combat oriented. If he's going to be very very smart, but he's going to be someone who is left with maybe conjuring help harmless things, or he's going to be more utility wise. Heart is bonesaw. Your Kushel heart is a bonesaw, mundane surgeon. The heart should be a philosophy student. Flying turret to 8. The heart should be a philosophy student. Let's see here. The barbarian should be a cat girl. Okay, yeah. Well, we can make the barbarian a cat girl. Is a smart guy going to be a girl too? Because the lancer is gonna was decided it was a girl, and if the big guy is going to be a cat girl, then we never settled on anything about the smart guy. The smart guy is just really really smart and a top student. So the board enthusiast, the heart definitely has to be a priest. We could be constantly quietly be at odds with the MC. Now that could be interesting. If the heart is the priest, of course we have to have the priest, and that would give a group tension, like a team tension, for when it is revealed that the main character doesn't just get his power from dragon blood, but the blood of a dragon devil. Okay, so smart guy. Okay, so I mean, in this case, a smart guy could be a childhood friend of the main character. The main character could go in already knowing the smart guy, and that would put even more pressure on the main character because the smart guy is really knowledgeable about pretty much everything. And during the course of the studies, the main character is failing. It's just he can't really grasp it. So it adds that extra layer of tension. Ian Maxwell. Okay, hear me out. The big guy is actually a tiny, chubby girl who specializes in baking magical breads and pastries that, when eaten, cause her to transform temporarily into monstrous creatures. That would probably more like a wizardry thing, where it's just magical baking, enchanted baking, enchanted magical home ec. Like an interesting class. I mean, I'm not sure if that would be like a main character idea, but I think it might make a good villain idea. Smart guy's a librarian's son. That could be Jared Chriselle, the smart guy is a librarian's son. That could work. Uh, maybe he is going to. Maybe his family is. I don't know. Into family is librarians, but in this world, librarians are also in charge of writing magical scrolls. And he's going to school to learn how to write magical scrolls, and it's that class is kind of like taking classical literature as a major. You learn a lot about things, not just literature, but history and economics and a whole grab bag of subjects, which is why he's so knowledgeable. Let's see. Um, Flying Turret 208. Oh, I've known my best friend was a magical dragon, was a demon dragon. Smart guy is Chris Cap, roommate. If it's a boarding school, it could be his roommate. I'm thinking at this point that the smart guy and the main character probably know each other from the beginning. Like the Jerry Chriselle, the librarian's son, isn't yet in high school, but super smart. He could be younger. Yeah, he could be a little younger than everyone else because he's so smart. Uh, LR, wait, hero is male, Lancer is female, big guy is a cat girl, and heart is a girl too. Yeah, I think the idea is to make a harem. This is gonna be a harem. Except for maybe the smart guy. The smart guy, I think we've agreed that. I think the consensus is that smart guy will be, in fact, a guy. Ian Maxwell, real harem hours, here boy. Flying Turret to 8, booty squeeing, Arab sheiks. Board enthusiasts, I love how we plan for this. Not to be a harem, but it's slowly becoming a one anyway. As seems to be the case. It seems to be that's where the trajectory is taking us. You have the librarians. Maybe in this world, librarians are also not wizards specifically, but kind of like enchanters, like low tier enchanters, where they are able. Because remember, in a fantasy world, a lot of magic comes from books, and they have to know how to. Librarians might have to know how to treat, care for, and handle magical books and magical scrolls. Maybe sometimes they even have to write them, repair them, that sort of thing. So, being a librarian in a fantasy setting might require some knowledge on magic and knowledge on a lot of other things too. Uh, Ian Maxwell, tell me the barbarian is a muscle wizard like Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist, or like Arnold Armstrong. The board enthusiasts, way NPCs are always complaining that women are underrepresented in fiction. Apparently, those who say that never heard of a harem trope. Apparently not. Maybe they have, but they don't like it. They don't like it because um, the main character is a male, and a lot of women like him, and the women are usually depicted as women instead of the audience having to be told they're women while they look like men. They might not like it for that reason. Rufus Trotsky, Catgirl can be a barbarian because of the beast blood. Yeah, maybe. One thing I did watch was Outlaw Star, and what's her name? Aisha Clan Clan. And she doesn't look that tough, but she can go in full beast mode and pretty much rip anyone in two. So it could be that sort of situation. Flying turret to a fine harem smart girl. Jerick Rochelle's smart guy invented eyeglasses, and is the only one in the world with them. Okay, that could work. He's like, "What's that on your face?" These are some my own invention. He pushes up his glasses. Hello, so smart guy will be a wingman. Smart guy is also precocious with the ladies. Precocious with ladies. That could be. He could be a nosebleeder. He's like a perverted type. He's just preserved and perverted. Just trying to remain looking kind of regal, remain acting sort of reserved and stoic, but being like a master Roshi. Could go that route. Could go that route. Jay Johnson, they are going to a magic school. Barbarian is a foreign exchange student. Uh, could be that we like a exchange, like a okay. We sent one of our people to a barbarian school. And okay, so this wizard went to a barbarian school, and this and but we got a barbarian. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. I'll keep that in mind though. Board enthusiast. What if the smart guy was a kitsune? I think that's a fox. Fox. So I guess that could work. That could work. Uh, Flying turret 208. Smart girl invented glasses. Kitsune. Okay. Okay. Fine. We'll make the smart guy a smart girl. I guess we're going a harem. I guess it's going to be a harem. Okay. Fine. We can give in to it. Okay. Let's see. Boys undress down to the under. Okay, yeah, I guess the smart guy, smart girl could still be perverted, but watching the guys change, like flying turret suggests. That'd be kind of an inversion on the usual trope. Usually, it's the one of the perverted male characters going around and spying on people and stuff. I guess it could be interesting, like a switch on this one. I guess it could be an enchantress taking people hostage with magic. Joe Rochelle, barbarian is an exchange student. Or, I mean, the barbarian person could just be another wizard, but this one is they're not necessarily smart per se. They're just really good at spells that do a lot of damage. It's like very aggressive with it. And we'll see. I'll keep that in mind. Harem was brought up. They said harem. We were thrown a curve. Lean into it. Board enthusiast. How would barbarian school work? Lesson one, if it moves, smash it. Lesson two, if it breathes, smash it. Final lesson, if it looks at you the wrong way, smash it. The barbarian school. That would be an interesting concept. I'm not really sure how that would work. But if it's an exchange student, I guess the wizard they send off to be exchanged to would have to go to a barbarian school in this case. Then I guess they could go to a martial school, because they teach you how to wield weapons and stuff. The barbarian wizard, fine turret. The barbarian wizard is great at boost spells that only work on self. To Hulk smash. Barbarian shaman exchange could work. Could work. So what we have so far is a setting of fantasy high school, where the high school teaches students how to become uh, adventurers. And the main character is a studious type coming from a very prestigious family that is now in decline because the father died somehow, and but the son isn't all that great at wizardry, but later on discovers that they are in fact a sorcerer with having a past ancestor, having made a pact with a dragon devil. That's how they got their powers. So after that, we have a Lancer, who is a arrogant prodigy wizard who is still comes from a family that is still in power and probably starts off as an antagonist. We have a priestess who is a heart that will come to blows or go head to head in some manner with the main character because he is a good priestess, and the main character partly gets his um, power from demon energy. And then we have a smart guy who is a son or a smart girl who is a daughter of a librarian and a fox girl, I guess. And I is there is very knowledgeable on a lot of stuff. Is probably stoic, but also perverted. And the daughter of a librarian, and she has to learn how to use magic and control magic so that they can properly care for magical tomes and scrolls. And then we have the big guy who is uh I guess going to be a cat girl, a cat girl barbarian who's an exchange student. I think we might go with that one, I guess. Or something to do with someone being really really powerful. The big guy is the most powerful, most damaging person in the group. Ian Maxwell's. How about instead of a barbarian school, how about a druid or shaman circle, and the big guy is transformation specialist exchange student. Now that could work. That could work. Uh, their spells are they specialize in transformations or something like that. Jared Crushell, yeah, barbarian speaks mostly a foreign language and comes from a communistic physical background. That could work too. Rosemary Memorial could be a physical enhancement spell, attack spells for the barbarian. Now it could be that the big guy, we could have like a, if anyone has seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, we could have a Toph type of situation where the big guy is actually small, but is really, really powerful. This because the prodigy lancer could be just generally good at everything, but and the main character could be good at sorcery spells. Is being a sorcerer, being able to pull spells out of the ether, just to out of sheer will, and that could be very powerful spells. But the big guy is one who specializes in just spells that do damage, destructive spells. He's part of a destructive school. It could be like a bad boy, or I guess if we're going to go still with the cat girl, I don't think we have to anymore. But I think if we still want to go with cat girl direction, she could still like be petite or whatever, but she could be this like a pyromaniac or something, and she just specializes in and destructive, highly destructive, powerful, devastating fire spells. And let's see here. Um, the board enthusiasts, so basically everyone in the harem, the magic user now. So it seems that we're going to go with not just a high school in a fantasy setting, but a magical high school in a fantasy setting. So it seems to be where things are headed. And yes, it looks like it's going to be a harem, a harem series. I mean, other than that, it could be a shaman, a shamanistic. Uh, she could be. I would that would play in the beast girl, cat girl thing, where maybe she comes from the Beastlands. They don't really have mages over there. They're more shamanistic. But she is not only she's shamanistic, she's able to part of her shamanistic training included physical combat, so she can fight. She is the only one in the group that can probably hold her own in a melee combat. So that would work. That would make her the big guy. She's physically capable and has that it could fit with a like foreign exchange student sort of scenario. Way better than just being a plain old barbarian. uh, Obadime. At this point, the story just needs to be as over the top wacky as possible. I think that's where we're headed. I think that's where we're headed. It's going to be over the top wacky. Um, might have a dark undercurrent still because you could still do that in anime and manga, especially with a over the top wacky face. Then have a dark undercurrent. So yeah, she didn't have to be stupid. I mean, she can be. She is a cat girl, beast girl from the Beastlands, and they are a shamanistic people. She she is the probably the only one in the group that can hold her own in a fight and can actually fight using melee weapons and her fists and that sort of thing. Pyromania. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to go with. We're going to go with her being a shaman cat girl from the Beastlands. Ian Maxwell, MC Sorcerer, Lancer, Classic Wizard, Big Guy, Shaman, Cat Girl, Smart Guy, Senior Librarian, Enchanter. Yeah, that's probably what we're gonna go with. The librarian smart person is going to be an enchanter. Not really like a caster spell able thing, but able to infuse spells into items and things like that. For enthusiasts, we got this far when we promised not to. Next stop is changing it to slice of life. Contra and I don't like where this is going. Let's see. Flying Terror 2-8, Witch Not Wizard. Yeah, you can call her a wizard. It's kind of universal. Witch is more like you make a pact with the devil sort of thing. Wizard is kind of universal. So they have the heart. The priestess will be the heart. Probably be a typical run of the mill personality. Flying Turret 208. Well, here's hoping I'm sorcerer. Walks into the closet, takes elevator, steps up, being climbs in. Witchcraft and yeah. So okay, it seems like what we have everything we need to start this. So that was a good 2 hours, good 2 hour and 20 minute stream. We accomplished, I think, what we set out to do is build a solid premise, get some characters together, see where this is going, and I think we have a pretty good feel as to where this is going. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here, and I think I have enough to work with, and that's about it. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here. Thank you everyone for joining me tonight and helping put all this together. And I will probably be putting together the first story of this series fairly soon in the background. And but when it is finished, the first story will be made available on Subscribestar at every tier. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week.